It's only a matter of time before we start seeing some moves being made.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I thought that today would be a good day to kind of maybe lay out some expectations and maybe some predictions ahead of free agency in the offseason, where we're likely to see, Craig Conroy. Maybe he cooks a little bit again this summer. Who knows? But make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And let's jump into it with all signs pointing to a quiet off season. Conroy kind of alluded to that in the breakup day interviews, which I understand. I don't necessarily think you want to kind of set the precedent that, okay, it's going to be a busy off season, which means, okay, players could be leaving. Like if players are coming in, players are going to have to leave. And, you don't want to kind of set this uncertainty in the air or any sort of, walking on eggshells tension before people even leave Calgary. That's not great. But I think you'll see a few trades, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of what we saw maybe 2 years ago in season, where Conroy had to trade Elias and Holmes, Zadorov, Chris Tanev, Noah Hannafin, Tyler Toffoli. Like, it's not going to be that. I think that it's going to be, there's still going to be some moves, but you're not going to see a lot. And that's okay. Because a busy season does not always mean a good off season. You could stay busy, be working those phones all summer long and get the player you want. Re-sign this guy. Oh, you brought in a huge free agent, like you made a splash during free agency. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a good move. And I think that that's okay. The Flames know that there is still work to be done. Do they have a little bit of a clearer picture with, their new roster compared to the roster the year before? Yeah, maybe it is a little bit different. So they know that at the risk of making lateral or bad moves, it's going to be quiet. I think that there's a level of risk that comes with, free agent signings, and, you're not giving up assets, but it's almost always like a little bit of an overpay, in some way, which is fine. I mean, it's part of the game, but you don't want to sign. Okay, let's use John Tavares, for example. I don't think the Flames have any interest in him, but, are you going to sign him? What is the risk and what is the reward with a 4-year, let's say 4-year contract, an expensive 4-year contract, when you could be integrating your younger forwards in, or you could be scouting the market for a forward to trade for and things like that. Like it doesn't make sense, and you have to think about it. And I think as we get closer and closer to free agency opening on July 1st, we're going to see obviously more trade targets become known. And teams are probably going to, try to potentially get things done around the draft. That is something that happens every year. Last year it was Jacob Markstrom. Oh, is he going to be traded? What's the situation there? And I think this year it's Rasmus Andersson that name's on the radar ahead of the draft. And we'll start hearing about what the Flames' plans are with certain players. I think that their main priority will be their RFAs. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. But most of the pending UFAs just don't make sense to re-sign. But let's focus on the expectations, I guess. Like I mentioned, a busy off season does not necessarily mean a good season is ahead. I mean, look at what happened to the Bruins, right? They went all in on Elias Lindholm, all in on Nikita Zadorov, and now they're picking 4th overall. Not just because of those two players, but because of roster construction and mistakes and injuries and things like that. And you don't want to be in that position again. You want to avoid that. So I think the Flames really they need to put an emphasis on younger players that fit the mold they're looking for and not bring in any more veterans. Like, I'm talking like 30 year, older than 30 years old. We don't need to do that. I think it's time to start focusing on that younger curve. But coming up next, we're going to talk about what are some likely moves that happen and maybe who stays and who goes at free agency. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I like how FanDuel makes betting super easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. And plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine your live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. And it's not just the NBA playoffs, folks. You can bet on the NHL playoffs as well. Don't miss out and head to fanduel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And, of course, I mentioned it, I believe it was yesterday's show. I think the biggest storyline of the offseason is going to be Rasmus Andersson. From what I have heard, he is looking closer to 8 years, $9 million. And the Flames are coming in at like 7 times 6. So like $6 million or $7 million rather. They're using Neil Pionk's as a comparison. That's not where Andersson wants to be. So, do they meet in the middle? Do we use the context clues of the breakup day interview and kind of say, okay, that was it? And we see him become a Minnesota Wild. I don't know. We could. I don't know. I think it's not necessarily going to be the first domino to fall this offseason by any means, but it is absolutely something to keep on our radar. And Go check out some pieces written by the folks over at the Win column. They've done a really good job breaking down what could make the most sense as a return in the Rasmus Andersson trade and why it would be beneficial. But speaking of the Minnesota Wild, Marco Rossi's name has been floated around. His name's been floated around, I would say, probably for the last season. I feel like this year he's kind of become like the Morgan Frost, where his name is just constantly in the rumor mill. So, I mean, if the Flames took Morgan Frost, I mean, let's bring this next variant of Morgan Frost to the Flames. Marco Rossi is a young center. He had his rookie season completely derailed by COVID, and he developed myocarditis, which is absolutely terrifying. When I was doing a little bit of research, I saw an article where the Wild's general manager, Bill Guerin, told Michael Russo, who's a reporter for The Athletic, that there's a 70% chance they trade Marco Rossi this offseason. Mind you, the Wild they're about to play game 2. And they just demoted Rossi to the 4th line. This is kind of crazy to me because why are you starting all of this when your team is in the middle of a playoff run? It just does not make sense to put that kind of message out there while you're trying to win a cup. I don't know. I feel like general managers this offseason are, have done a great job at like shooting themselves in the foot with these quotes. Whether it's Rutherford over in Vancouver talking about Quinn Hughes going to play in New Jersey, or Don Sweeney and Cam Neely talking about like ticket prices raising and how they don't care that the product's bad. The ticket prices are still going to increase. And then, of course, Bill Guerin. So, and the Rangers just extended Chris Drury. So, like, incredible week since the Flames regular season ended, truly. But Marco Rossi, 60 points in 82 games, had 24 goals. So similar to Matt Coronado, but this kid is a 23-year-old center. That feels like he fits the mold, if you ask me. I'm not necessarily a genius, but I mean, the only thing, again, that's different is that we got a left-handed shot. So a name to keep on the radar. The Flames have money. They have assets. Rasmus Andersson, I hope you enjoy Minnesota. The other name that has been floated around, even since before the trade deadline, was, of course, Elias Pettersson from Vancouver. They traded JT Miller instead. And, Rutherford made it clear that they're looking to trade him too. So at least there's some transparency. I mean, I think that I wish teams would just wait until their team was like eliminated or their season was done, like the Canucks and Bruins did, before saying these things, instead of like while you're in the middle of a playoff run. But could be interesting. I think the Canucks would want some pretty big pieces from the Flames. Obviously, I think Zary would be tied into that, as well as another prospect and probably a first round pick. And everything has to make sense, right? Like that just, I think we are past the Brad Treliving era in terms of like people pleasing. like, not, like, just accepting a crappy return or, um, just making something happen for the sake of making something happen. I feel like we are past that. But I do think there are a number of UFAs that are going to, be departing the Flames. I think that, Dryden Hunt, unless you're keeping, a two-way contract may make sense. Justin Kirkland, I again, don't really see the harm in a two-way contract there. Anthony Mantha, I think the Flames will move on from. Just it stinks because he didn't really have a chance to prove himself in Calgary, or really play for, like, a contract since he got injured so early in the season, but the Flames have pieces they need to integrate into the lineup, and that also includes young centers, and I don't think they re-sign Kevin Rooney, for one reason or another, whether it's mutual or maybe he retires or wants to play closer to home now that he has a family, like a baby. I don't know. I'm just throwing whatever sticks or throwing whatever at the wall and hoping something sticks. But I don't think Joel Hanley resigns. It's again, young players that could be integrated. If it just doesn't make sense to me to sign a 34-year-old defenseman. I don't care how many minutes he plays a night. When he has not played that type of minutes in his career before. So what makes you think uh, you'll get success or the same or similar results or better again? They do have a handful of RFAs, and I'll do an episode later on in the summer, I guess, to break down the RFAs. But these are the players that they have right now. Coronado, Kevin Ball, Morgan Frost, Adam Klapka, Connor Zary, and Morton. I think immediately your first two priorities should be Coronado and Zary for long-term deals. And I think Kevin Ball too. Not really sure what we're looking at there for a contract, but I think Frost is a given. And Klapka and Morton, probably something similar. But coming up next, we're going to talk about what has to happen for the Flames to move forward. Can they move forward, or are they just going to stay stuck in the mud, just dragging their feet here on Locked On Flames? Are you looking for a delicious snack that packs a protein punch? Wonderful Pistachio is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love the no shell variety because they are quick and easy to eat, whether I'm on the go at work, on the go in my car, or just hanging out at home and grazing throughout the day. I like the lightly salted, the regular salted, and of course, I tried the new salt and vinegar, and they're so good. Absolutely going to be picking up another bag of those. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, and you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. So I think that we have all accepted and come to terms, if you have to come to terms with this, I guess, that the Flames value this veteran leadership group. Blake Coleman isn't going anywhere. Kadri isn't going anywhere. Mackenzie Weegar isn't going anywhere. I swear to God, I see Ottawa Senators fans throw his name in this like trade proposal every 3 months. Mackenzie Weegar is not leaving Calgary. He is the next captain of the organization. So, we know that the veterans kind of, I don't want to say rule the room because that makes it sound like they're the ones calling the shots, but they're the pillars of the locker room. And that's good because I don't think you want to see a directionless team kind of just floating around. I feel like Chicago was kind of like that for a little bit, maybe still like that. Just with a bunch of kids. Like you can't do anything. And I think that that's, a great example of rectifying that is San Jose bringing in Tyler Toffoli. I think that that is a perfect example. And you saw the growth this year. And while there are going to be more spots opening up on the roster, you're going to see them hopefully integrating more youth. There are deserved promotions. Obviously, Hunter Brusewicz, Rory Currens, I want to see him starting in the NHL this year. I want to see him have more than 4 games. I think you'll see, maybe Jeremy Poirier. I don't think you're going to see much of Sam Morton in the NHL, unfortunately, unless something big changes. But I was looking at the list of the UFAs, the upcoming UFAs throughout the league, and none of them really caught my eye as like a good fit for the Flames. Or nothing immediately jumped out and was like, oh, and not because they weren't a star player, but because of the age. The Flames don't need to be bringing in 27, 28-year-olds anymore. It's just not what we're necessarily in the market for, what we're looking for and working with, unless it's like Mitch Marner. But I do not see the Flames making a splash for Mitch Marner. There's no way that happens. Would I love to have Mitch Marner on this team? Yes, of course. Duh. Give him the whole available cap space minus maybe 6 million so we could re-sign some of these RFAs. But there's no way that actually happens. Do they maybe make a call and see, hey, what's up? Yeah. But depending on how Toronto does in the postseason, I'm sure Brad Treliving is going to take him out to a nice dinner, regardless, and make something happen. Brad Marchand he's not coming to Calgary. No. I think it's either another a 1 or 2 year contract with Florida, or he goes back to Boston for a similar amount of time. And I think that the Sam Bennett bridge has burned. That ship has sailed. The other night when he scored, it was like a punch to the gut. It was a harsh reminder of what could have been. And you don't want to see that happen again. You have to learn from this. You don't want to see another core of young, talented players wasted. You have your goalie. You have you have your goaltender in Dustin Wolf. You have Matt Coronado. You have Connor Zary. Let's do something different this time around and not hinder their development and usage, and maybe think outside the box. But that'll do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me and tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic day. It is hump day. We have made it through halfway through the work week, and I hope you're recommending this podcast to all your coworkers who are also trying to get through a Flames or a Flamesless postseason playoff run. Okay. Makes no sense. But make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.